Hi, my name is Chris Clark. I'm Senior Curator at the Glucksman, and you're very pleased to be welcome to today's lunchtime talk with artist Kyrie Roach. This is a series of online conversations and presentations by artists accompanying the Glucksman's 2021 exhibition, Home, Being and Belonging Contemporary Ireland. And it's a series that invites participating artists to discuss their practices. These talks will be taking place throughout the duration of the exhibition and the year. And of course, you're always welcome to come and join and pose questions as well. Ciara Roach is a painter based in County Wexford. Her upcoming and current shows include a solo exhibition in Mother's Tank Station Gallery in Dublin and a two-person show at Emma Roche in Wexford Arts Centre. Her second solo show, Here and Away, opened in the Lab Gallery in 2019, shortly after the completion of her MA in Art Research and collaboration with the Institute of Art Design Technology, and that was in May 2019. She's shown extensively throughout Ireland, including in the Glucksman, Visual in Carlow, Serious Arts Centre Cove, RHA in Dublin, Peripheries Gorey, Lismore Castle Main Gallery and St. Carthage Hall in Lismore, Waterford. And she was a recipient of the Graduate Prize with Carlow Arts Festival, Arts Council, ArtLink and Creative Ireland Awards in 2020. So the format for today is that in about a minute, I will hand over to a pre-recorded presentation by Ciara. That's 35 minutes long. And then we will link back up live as well for some discussion and some questions and answers. If you have any questions or any comments, please post them in the chat function. And also just be aware that we will be posting this video to YouTube as well. So your contribution will be shared online afterwards. Before I hand over as well, a big thanks as always to the Arts Council Ireland and UCC for their support for this series. And so without further ado, I will hand over to a presentation by Kyrie Roach. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Kyrie Roach and I am a painter based in County Wexford. I've been kind of in rural County Wexford, which has been a blessing in lockdown because my studio never closed and it's actually in my old home place, in my parents' garage, so it's converted, which is nice. And I live like 5 minutes away, so it's really handy. So I'm kind of just going to jump straight in and talk about this painting that you can see on the screen, which was painted in 2016, and it's probably one of my all-time favorites. So I'm just kind of picking touchstone artworks here. So this commission happened in 2016, and it came about because I've completed my degree in 2015, and from my degree show, one of my paintings was selected for the Origins show with Lismore Castle Arts in St. Carthage Hall. And the owner of the gallery and the castle, as it happens, saw that work and just asked me kind of casually to just do a commission. He wanted about 6 paintings of Lismore, and he was so open about it. He said, like, it could be Lismore town, it could be the castle, it could be the interior of the castle, it could be the grounds, anything. Kind of left it totally open to me. It was so generous. So I got to spend a couple of days basically and nights wandering around the castle and taking documentation like on my phone and on cameras and just experiencing the space. And then I got to go back to my studio and make a lot of paintings for it. So this is one of them. And it's, I think it's a touchstone painting because it was like painted at a time when there was like a lot going on, I think personally, which, you know, I'm not going to go into, but it's like everything that I was thinking was just painted into this painting. And it's kind of cinematic in a way because it's like got this narrative, because you can see like a tennis ball and you can see like a chair and it's set up in a particular way as if somebody has just left. It's actually, it looks like it's summer, but it's actually in February, and it was like one of those rare moments where like a burst of sunlight would just come out. So yeah, it's a painting that means a lot to me, I think, actually. I don't own it anymore. It is in the Lismore Castle collection, which I am thrilled about. So I'm going to move on then to another two more paintings from that actual particular commission. Yeah, so these 2 paintings were also like from that body of work. They're kind of, I guess they're coming into the nighttime, and there's something kind of, again, cinematic, but also atmospheric about particularly the kind of the garden piece, where you see like there's like kind of clouds coming in and it's it's almost like a storm is brewing. Um, I just really enjoy that painting for that reason, that it definitely has a sense of foreboding in it a little bit. And then the one with the cars leaving, well, that's an interesting painting because it signified actually that I was now in the castle on the grounds on my own. And this was when the last staff members were leaving. Um, and it was kind of taken just a quick snapshot of them leaving. And then it's a really nice painting though. It's like, I like that kind of dark, lights, moody kind of thing. At that time, I was painting a lot of night scenes. I don't do that so much anymore. I'll probably come back to it again, but painting a lot of like dark night scenes and cinematic setups almost. I should say as well that the paintings that I've shown mostly on this presentation are all small scale works on paper. I don't exactly know why, because I was picking out all the paintings I was going to show, and turns out they were nearly all, with the exception of one, I think, on paper and quite small scale. I do make larger work, but it for some reason never quite catches my own attention as much. I don't see that the larger work is more important, for example, than smaller works on paper. So I should also say about the titles. So for a long time, a couple of years ago, the titles of all my work were based on the time that the documentation would have happened. So it's like it's centering it in a moment, I guess, that actually happened. So like I think it started in my degree. I don't so much use that anymore, maybe occasionally when it suits, but for about 4 years, all the titles of my paintings were actually the time that the original documentation happened. So, oh, I should say as well that that actually was a show that at Lismore, and it happened in September 2016 to November 2016, I think it was, and it was in St. Carthage Hall, and there was actually 21 painters, I think, in the show. And the castle, like the Lismore Castle, they purchased 10 for the collection, well, the owner of the castle. So that was pretty cool. And I think I actually have a slide of them now. Yeah, so this is actually those paintings that they purchased, but this is from their recent exhibition, which was called A View from Lismore, which actually happened during lockdown. Um, so it's not the original exhibition that happened in St. Carshall, but this is just those paintings that are owned by, like, they're in the Lismore collection, shown during the pandemic when like everything was kind of strange and they had to come up with like a new show. So they were ordinarily shown in the castle. I think they're in a place called Duke's Landing, which is I think it's in the entrance to the castle. But I got to see them again, and it's kind of weird because it was 5 years later, and I was going back to see work that I'd made 4 or 5 years ago. And I think that's the first time that that's happened with paintings that I once made, and like they've not been mine, haven't seen them in so long. And it was like a really interesting experience because it was like you can see when you see them again, you're kind of looking at me, you're going, oh God, there's a lot after changing in my work. Like there's a lot of, like, 5 of these are night scenes, 5 of them are day scenes, whereas like it's not quite like that anymore. They're mostly kind of ambiguous for day scenes mostly. But yeah, that was a nice experience actually, and it was a lovely show as well. They had like a lot of kind of Lismore based works and works from the Castle collection, and it was a lovely show. So just thought I'd pop that in. Okay, so after the Lismore show, it was like 2017 before I could paint again, which is a couple of months. I mean, it was the end of 2016, the show, and then I think it was March 2017 by the time I was actually painting again. So that's about 4 months where I was kind of a bit lost. I mean, when you leave college, like you're not told to apply for bursaries or grants, or you're not told how to do your tax. It's all these things that you just kind of have to figure out, and it took a long time to find my feet. And I was working in a yogurt factory at the time, and I feel like I was getting absorbed into that, and it was a strange time. You're after having this quite successful thing happen, and then you're thrust back out into, well, you have to make a living again. Like it's an unusual place to be in, especially because I was quite young. So I ended up with just by happenstance taken a walk in a place called Kennedy Park. It was in March of 2017, and I was kind of inspired by the place because it reminded me, I think, a little bit of Lismore, in that it was these formal gardens and more informal gardens. But it was just, it was like, there's all these structures, there's a walk, it's kind of, it's an unusual place, and it's like, it's public place as well, which I think is important. I don't, like, apart from Lismore, I don't normally paint private places, private gardens as such. So I think I was interested in this idea of the public and the private, and privileged access, because I was jumping a fence. I probably shouldn't say that, but I was jumping a fence to get in here because it was closed at particular times, and like I would have went back at night time when it was closed and jumped into the fence because it's very close to where I live, and had that privileged access to a place that I would have known quite well, but it is actually a public space. Yeah, so I think that's what I was focusing on a little bit, and like these private moments around these places. And then I think, as you can probably see from this as well, that the structures were quite important. So structures and shadow have kind of become more important necessarily than a pretty garden. I was kind of setting up these almost moments, like as if, like, there's, I think there was, oh God, I think there was 18 paintings actually in the Kennedy Park series, and I do return to the subject and do a lot of work around one particular place as well. But anyway, so when they were on studio wall, they were in like a grid, and they're all very small scale, and they were in like a grid pattern on the wall, and it felt like they were all describing something that had happened or was going to happen. And it was like, maybe even like, I was listening to, when I was making these paintings, I was listening to a lot of crime podcasts, and it felt like when I was listening to these crime podcasts and they were on a grid on the wall, that there were maybe like these kind of a scene of something that had happened, and these were like the photography to figure out, you know, the crime scene or whatever it was. But I'm not sure how that came about, but anyway, there was a lot of those anyway paintings made at that time, and they were a way to get me out of a rut. And then in 2018, well, it was actually, yeah, September 2017, I decided to go back and do an MA in art research and collaboration with IEDC, because it was a 1 day a week, so I was able to continue working to support myself and to do the masters. But also, I really, the lecturers on that course are people that I really admire, and I thought I would get a lot from it, and I really did. So thank God I did. But yeah, so this is like was made during the masters. It was kind of similar to the Kennedy Park ones, where I was thinking about these places that are familiar to me, very familiar to me, like Kirklow, which is a beach in Wexford. And again, I was thinking about, you know, like I guess this place that, you know, kind of wanted to make it strange, if that makes sense. So this is like in February, it was made in February, which it looks like summer, but it's not. And I think you can kind of tell because there is a kind of a cold winter light. But I find this painting kind of fun because it is a bit weird because the shadows don't go like that really. They're a bit it's a bit strange basically, but it could also be anywhere in the world. In fact, it definitely doesn't look like it's Ireland, but it is. It was one of those paintings where you just really enjoy making it as well. So yeah, I think it's kind of a timeless painting in a way. Again, it sets up this kind of scene where you think that maybe something is going to happen or has happened. That summer of 2018, my boyfriend was actually in Australia, so I visited him for a month. And I was basically a tourist in Sydney, and I actually met Sydney, Melbourne, and New Zealand for a month, and it was amazing. And I felt so guilty about going on a month-long holiday while I was doing an MA, and how was I going to afford this, and oh, the madness of it really. So what I did was I said, well, I'll just take loads of pictures that are I'm going to make from I'm going to make sure that I'm basically doing work on this holiday. So I took a lot of pictures, and this is Palm Beach, which is the most gorgeous beach, I don't know, maybe in the world. It's very possible, but it's in Sydney, and it's where Home and Away is filmed, the Australian soap that we all grew up on. So anyway, this is Palm Beach, but as you can see from these paintings, I'm not actually looking at the view. I'm looking at the structures around the view. So the beach is like it's out of shot, basically. It's kind of in front of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, and I was kind of looking at these buildings that are around Palm Beach, and this is a place where basically the like incredibly wealthy people of Australia, of Sydney, would live. Like the apartments and houses around here are the kind of ones that you'd see in like architecture magazines. Like they're all different, which is strange because it's not a consistent seafront. Then, like, you know, it's like the plan permission is a bit weird over there, that you're allowed to do what you want and you're allowed to go as crazy as you want, which is not really shown in some of these paintings, but maybe more so in others. But anyway, yeah, so I was interested in this kind of the really, really elite, rich people on like their lives, and kind of imagining what that's like, and just making these paintings of it. And I should actually mention that because I was in Australia in our June, yeah, it was June, that was actually the reverse. So in Australia, that's their winter. So it's winter in Australia. So it's kind of this winter light again, which if you wanted to continue with the theme of previous works from Kennedy Park and Kirklow, it is winter light again. But there's a thing that happens when you get off the plane in Australia, or I have definitely experienced, and I'm sure anyone who's been there has experienced, it's like, it's so much brighter than what we have here. Like I'm looking out here now, and the light in Ireland is like this kind of muted, almost like it is sunny, but it's muted sun, and you don't realize how muted it is until you go somewhere like Australia, where it's so bright. It's so kind of a yellow tint nearly. It's gorgeous, but that did mean that my palette, like my color palette, had to be completely changed. So I would normally paint for maybe 9 colors, I think, consistently 9 colors. But it took a lot of trial and error with these paintings of Australia to get those colors right. I mean, they were like, it took a long time. There was a lot of rubbish happened before these, because it's just it's a whole new palette basically. I should mention as well that these paintings were made after the trip, so from the documentation of the trip, but they were made afterwards. So I didn't actually paint these in Australia. So then all of those previous paintings of Kennedy Park, Kirklow, and Australia and Palm Beach they were in the show called Here and Away, which is kind of a play on Home and Away, a show in the Lab Gallery in Dublin, which happened in September and November, I think, 2019. So that was a really strange experience of a show. So this is kind of where I'm jumping around timelines slightly now, but like we're going here from 2018 just straight into 2019, but a lot happened in between. And I was actually back in Australia for what I thought would be 6 months when this show opened, and I didn't know I was going to have this show until I was in Australia, so it was a bit confusing. But anyway, so it was an interesting process because I didn't have the work was all at home and I was in Australia, and my poor mom had to, like, we had a Skype conversation and she had to hold up paintings and ask me, is this one to go up to Dublin? Or is this one to go up to Dublin? And there was a lot of back and forth, and eventually she got to deliver the paintings up to Sheena Barrett and the team in the lab, and they got to kind of put the show together. Whatever, I didn't have a huge amount of involvement in the actual curation of the show. When I saw the install shots that Sheena sent me, I was just amazed at what they had done. Like there was so much in that show. Like the upstairs gallery, I think there was 30 paintings in it. Some of them were on board, some of them slightly larger than this. Most of them were small scale works, and the gallery is black. And then I think they were kind of playing off the idea of them as like a film. So it's like a film reel a little bit, the way they're displayed. And each, like the Australia ones are displayed together, and then the Kelly Park ones are displayed together and Cartload together. So I think it was like that you'd walk out of one painting and maybe you'd walk into another, and that way you would explore the space. I need to talk about dispatch. It's hard. It's not painting related, but it's a huge part of my practice, and it'd be silly to just ignore it. So, while I was doing the MA art research in collaboration, I met two amazing people, Bex Butler and Astrid Newman, and they are artist curators as well. And we kind of formed a collective, and we still touch base with each other every now and again. But there was the percent per hour commission was for Wexford County Council. There was 3% per hour commissions going to be kind of basically they were to apply to. We won that selection process anyway, and what we had, our idea was that we were going to work with 10 community groups and create postcards with objects of importance to those community groups, and then they would be free to send anywhere in the world over the course of a particular weekend. So in the end, we worked with 10 community groups. So for example, the postcard, well, which is actually a poster, the one with the dance shoes that you can see there on the left, that was for the objects of a Shamnos dance group. Then there was like, we done GA groups. We had the Men's Shed, who were hugely involved. I mean, I think I was in and out with the Men's Shed and different groups, maybe twice, 3 times a week, every week for 6 months as we got ready for this. And they built us this kind of, I don't know, it was like a display type turntable where we displayed objects on, and we had monitors where there was stories that each group would have told recorded in the space and stuff. But anyway, so over 6 months we worked so hard, and it was amazing. The rewards of this were, it was an unreal project, because it was something that wasn't really just for us. It was something about a lot of people, as in it kind of, well, it involved so many people, but it also meant so much to so many people. And then on, like, that was working with 10 different community groups. So like, it meant something to those, but then also it had like another life when at the weekend of the pop-up post office, which I probably didn't mention, but yes, it was a pop-up post office, and there was free tea and coffee as well, and you could send a postcard for free anywhere. So on that weekend, then, like, we had so many people coming in, and just under 1,000 postcards were sent all over Ireland and all over different parts of the world. We had a lot going to Australia, a lot going to Canada, a lot going to North America, a lot going to Asia, actually. And there was a lot, like, different places where we had a book where if you wanted to, you could say where the postcard was going, who it was going to, and it was, yeah, it was lovely to read that back. So it was like, at the opening of that project, actually, we kind of looked around at each other and we kind of went, I think we've peaked, like, this is it now. Like, this is the most amazing thing we're ever going to do. And it really did feel like that. So I could not talk about it. So that's kind of my community and collaboration side of things that I do hope to continue. It's just not ideal circumstances last year or this year for anything like that. Anyway. So these paintings, you may have seen these actually in the Glucksman online exhibition, Home from Home. I made these specifically for that exhibition, actually. I just kind of, at the start of the pandemic last year, I was completely lost, like, painting wise. I was just like, oh, I can't, like, I think everyone felt it as well. It's like, you're kind of scared, I guess. You're kind of like, there's a fear there, and you're not, creativity doesn't come easy in that kind of circumstance. So I had just moved into my new home, actually, which is my great grandmother's home. And so I get to rent that, which is really nice because there's like a personal connection. And because it's renting from family, it means I could do it up basically whatever way I wanted. But that was kind of curtailed because then lockdown happened and we didn't get to do much for a few months. So we were living in sort of a building site, which I don't know if you can see, but actually in the kitchen painting, which is the top left painting, like, there's no units in the kitchen, which is the room beyond, I should say. And then there's like we're sitting on garden furniture because we don't have anything. But these paintings were like, I don't know, they were just like almost a meditation away from everything. I think I made 12 in the end, varying degrees of success, but they just provided me this space where I could just go into the studio and it didn't really matter what was happening because I didn't have to think about these, and they could be as sloppy, as messy, as bad. It didn't matter. Like they didn't matter. And because there was no pressure at all attached to them, I think they might be some of my best work actually. Um, there's something that I feel from them anyway, and they're sincere actually. They're quite sincere, and I feel that myself with them. The painting in the green bedroom actually at the top right corner, that painting actually went on to be shown in The Sky is Blue in Visual in Carlo, and it kind of received a good bit of attention actually. And I think a lot of people may have felt the same that I've sort of tried to depict in them, that there's like a meditative kind of calmness. I think that came through, and I think it kind of sort of spoke to people that way, maybe at a particular time when we all needed something a little bit, basically something not intense and something kind of relaxing. So yeah, these were a real joy to make. They really were. So, and they're now actually, I think 6 of them are in the University College Cork permanent collection, and that has made me so happy that these paintings get to stay together and be shown together and live together, and because they do belong together. They were all made, they're all in my house, but it doesn't really matter that it's my house. It could be actually anywhere, anyone's house. They're all the same kind of quietness in them. Oh yeah. So finally, we are on to the paintings that are in the show Home with the Glucksman. And so it is kind of interesting that these paintings were actually made in Australia. So I was in Australia then for 5 months back in, oh yeah, summer 2019 into autumn 2019. So yeah, after my MA and after dispatch, I was all intent on moving to Australia for, I think I was kind of hoping for maybe a year, but didn't work out that way in the end, but all for good reasons. The first painting that I made is actually, I don't have it on the presentation, but it is in the home exhibition, and it's called Breakfast Cafe, and it's a painting of the cafe that I used to go to every morning before my job in the physio, which was a receptionist job in the physio. And eventually, like, the girl who worked there got to know me and I got to know her. So it was, we'd know each other's names, we'd have a few talk a bit in the morning and stuff, which was lovely. And then, so the Palace Hotel was the second painting. And this is the bar that we used to go to, usually on Friday evening after work or whatever. So again, more kind of personal connection to this place, community. And then this one, so this is Beacon, and this one it's when I was coming home on the bus actually, because it was mostly winter in Australia, it would be getting dark at like 5 or 6 o'clock most of the time when I was there. This was the brightly lit building at the top of the road, which was about 5 minutes from my home. And every time I'd see it, because I didn't know the roads very well, I would not have been able to drive over there because I just didn't know where I was. Like, I couldn't situate myself for a long time. But when I'd see that Mortlake Ocean Food, which was I think it's a seafood cafe, I would know that I was nearly home, and therefore I really love that painting. I actually painted it again twice, and I'm kind of looking at it right now. It's in front of me. But I do prefer this one, which is slightly smaller. Like, I've done a larger version of it. Sometimes I do repeat paintings and do, more than one version of each painting, but more often than not, the smallest version works best. I don't know why. So, yeah, this is an interesting painting. So from those paintings, they were obviously paintings of cafes, bars, restaurants. I wanted to continue that a little bit. But we're changing tone, I think, because whereas the previous paintings in Australia and stuff, I would consider kind of, okay, it's kind of hard to describe. It's like they're sincere or something. These ones, the next few I'm going to show you, they're slightly different in tone, let's just say. So this is Starbucks Study, and it was made during the Cowhouse Studios summer residency, where I got to spend a week being incredibly well looked after in the Cowhouse Studios and having a full week to paint in the most amazing studio. So it was a really productive, brilliant time. And at the time when I made this painting, I didn't realize that it was going to become basically a touchstone painting, because it's one that I've come back to quite a lot actually. over the last couple of months. But anyway, so it's a painting of a disgusting Starbucks in a shopping centre. And it is kind of it's kind of one of the first paintings I made that there is definitely a kind of a almost controversial element to them. So I'm kind of getting a little bit more cheeky as I go along. Anyway, like to me, what Starbucks means is it's yuck. It's ugh. It's kind of disgusting. It's kind of naff. Especially this one. I mean, here we are looking at a shopping centre. It's like it's not a nice place, and it's not. I mean, you're also kind of having to think about things politically, like a huge amount of consumerist culture, capitalism, all those things, you know, you have to think about when you're making a painting like this. And at the same time, it's really fun. It's a really fun painting. It's kind of taken the pee, if you know what I mean. Like it's a bit of everything kind of going on here. But I like the kind of warmness of it. I think that's it. It works really well small scale because it's a really warm painting, and then I mean you're looking out into a coldness out beyond, but because it's so small, it gets away with it, is what I'm trying to say. But I think I did do a large version, which was 100 centimeters by 80, and it was awful. Painting's fine, but it's too much. It's a disgusting Starbucks in your face, and it's just too much. So that was the kind of beginnings of something else that I'm kind of working on at the moment. So we're going to go on. These are my IKEA studies. Same as the last one. It's like you know, I had been working with the home, and it was so sincere, and it was so like meditative and everything. And I guess to kind of turn that on its head a little bit would be to go somewhere where that feeling is a little bit turned upside down. So we're actually, maybe you wouldn't know that these were IKEA if you didn't see the titles. And I like that. I think that's kind of fun because it does, like, they do look kind of inviting, especially the way they're lit. Like the couch looks cozy, and the lighting of the dining room is just, it's really warm and satisfying. But yeah, these are 100% a consumer space that has been built up to make you want something, to make you buy something, to make you lust after things that you don't need. So yeah, I found these are just two very interesting pieces that I quite like. And I made, like, there's I think five or six small IKEA ones, and there's a couple of them that I made larger scale, which I like as well. But for some reason, I again prefer the small ones. So yeah, these are actually currently, I think, installed in Mother's Science Station in Dublin. So it hasn't opened to the public, so this is a sneak preview because they haven't been seen before. There's another one that is also in Mother's Science Station, and again, this one is, yeah, it's even further down that like kind of path of cheeky a little bit. There's a theoretical cheek here, I would say, also an unkindness a little bit. So I should actually say that this painting was made, well, it was made in December 2020, but I am also doing a show with the artist and painter Emma Roche. She's also from Wexford and an amazing artist, and I'm so happy that I get to work with her. But we're doing a show coupled up in West Art Centre. We think it's June possibly this year, so maybe two shows open at the same time, which is interesting, and the home show, so that seems like everything is open at the same time, but what can you do? But the reason I bring up working with Emma is because we were kind of bouncing work off each other for the last few months, and she's making a lot of work about kind of domestic spaces, personal interactions in domestic spaces, like she's maybe family and stuff as well. And I don't know, because we're working towards a show together, the work, it kind of talks to each other in a way. Then these smags happened because, like, I was thinking about things like I guess the domestic, which is also in the IKEA painting, but it's a kind of how do you say, a lustful domestic kind of the what's the word, like it's kind of thinking of influencer culture and how, you know, the smeg is like the best and it's like the most expensive and it's the, well, basically it's the one that everybody wants, and it kind of, it says something about you and your success, I guess. So I was thinking about that when I was painting these smegs, and I was thinking about the domestic, and I was thinking about like the cheekiness of them a little bit, because they have a kind of a cheeky feel to them. And I also just incredibly love the colors of them and the lights in them. They're very lustful, basically. So this is the last slide I'm going to show, and these are my mannequin paintings. So so the Untitled one is actually made 2 weeks ago, and the underwear one was made a while before that. But these are paintings that are influenced again by working with Emma, because she paints the figure quite a lot, and I was kind of thinking about things that are a little bit uncanny, maybe, like also about like a critique of the body in a certain way and the feminine body, and how it's used in promotion of like all these kind of things, and then the need and the lust to have particular things, and also like the kind of sexualization of the body a little bit. And then like they're kind of weird, like especially the underwear one, because like if you think about it, it's kind of strange that you like chop up a body to display something, and is that not really weird? And that is kind of strange. So yeah, it's like we're desensitized to the strangeness of that. So yeah, again, they're kind of uncanny, kind of quirky, kind of, yeah, I don't really know where they're going, and I don't normally depict the figure. So it's interesting that that has kind of happened now. And yeah, I don't know where they're going, but we'll see. And I should also say that like usually I used to work from documentation, but that's kind of changed, especially over the last year, because we haven't been able to go anywhere. So they're kind of exist in an unreal place, if that makes sense. Like they're not based off anything in particular anymore. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. So just watch this space, because I am going to finish up now. So yeah, thank you very much.
Hi, welcome back. Maybe I'll invite Ciara back here. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, thank you very much for that. It's kind of great to see kind of like a nice run through some of the work you've been doing and how it kind of relates to your some of your experiences, and to kind of see what directions you're headed in. So thanks very much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. It was actually kind of nice to do, to be honest.
Good. I've got a few questions here myself, and we'll be taking questions from the audience, and I see one or two there already. But if it's okay, maybe I'll kind of just initiate things here with a question about a particular work, which kind of crossed my mind. And this is the Smegs painting, the one, of course, with the display of what are they, like kind of toasters or something?
Toasters and kettles.
Toasters and kettles, that's it. And what I was kind of thinking about is there an inherent kind of criticism built into a work like this?
Yeah.
You know, because you talk about this kind of lust for beauty, the bright colors, objects of value and taste. And of course, these are all things that apply to your own work. And I wonder if that's something you can maybe expand on, this idea of paintings having this kind of ability to interrogate their own status as not just artworks, but as kind of commodifiable objects.
Yes, absolutely. I think the Smegs is the kind of the basically the one, especially that kind of represents that. But I'm having like these struggles myself with the idea, especially when you talk about painting, it is an object. It's going to be just something pretty on a wall. It's like this kind of need for something like that. But I think even less so about what the painting is itself, is that like the idea that you have to have a particular thing, because, you know, it's something to do with lust, and it's something to do with my own struggle, kind of to be, I don't know what the word is. I got like, if you have certain things, people might say, oh, you're a success, you know, it's kind of right. And it's like, I can't help myself but want something like that. Like I would like a Smeg fridge probably, but it's kind of like, I'm trying to think about that a little bit to myself, and in relation to, say, some of my friends or whatever as well. That's like, you know, we need to kind of sometimes think about what's actually important, and it gets lost a little bit with the online world, especially like if you're someone who's interested in influencer culture or anything, which I mean I'm not particularly, but I do follow things just to kind of see what's going on in the world. And I think that there is like this, you know, there's a particular way to live now, and there's a particular, when you're doing it right if you have certain things in your home, certain objects, if you look a certain way. And I mean I don't agree with that, so I'm sort of, I mean it's something I struggle with myself, so it's not a critique, it's not a criticism of anyone, it's just my way of working the thoughts out. So yeah.
Well, I mean, I think sorry, is there a bit of feedback there? I think what's interesting as well is there, you know, you kind of talk about this tension, I think, between, you know, work that kind of criticizes aspects of, say, consumer society, but also, you know, it comes across that you enjoy this process
Yes.
as well, that you know, you kind of love this act of painting, you know, the kind of colors and this kind of composition. And I wonder if, you know, maybe on this kind of related topic, you know, speaking of your more recent works, and so your more recent work kind of seemed to represent a shift from places that are imbued with like kind of a personal connection. It's kind of, and I'm thinking of some of the works from Wexford, or the Home from Home series with your new house, and the recent work, which seems to have kind of reflect more anonymous sites. You know, what kind of Marc Auger has called these kind of non-places, like kind of hotel lobbies or airports or supermarkets, and they kind of lack a sense of identity or history. Can you maybe elaborate a little bit on this shift, and what has drawn you to make a move towards representing these sites?
I guess I can't, it's sort of a process that just happens and you don't really think about it sometimes, but I think I'm fed up with doing the personal, if you know what I mean. And it's maybe it's not even about the personal, or it's more, it's a kind of about I think I don't really know how to explain, but it's just I just want to be a little bit more cheeky, if that makes sense, with the work. Like I just want to, like, somewhere, like, if you think traditionally about works that might be nice hanging on a wall, like most of this stuff wouldn't be, and I'm happy with that. Like they look nice and they look lovely, but they're not. It's not really about. It's a kind of, I don't know how to explain it essentially, but it's like, yeah, I'm not really thinking about pretty views. I'm not really thinking about things like that. I am kind of starting to move into a new direction where things are just a little bit more critical of the world, maybe. So we'll see.
I've got, of course, a couple of questions here about painting processes, and from Maureen Burke and from Stephanie McLaughlin. And maybe I can kind of bring these ones together here, because Maureen was asking, you know, could you talk about your painting process, particularly ideas of kind of your color palette and stuff. And Stephanie also wants to know, you know, what kind of supports do you mount the paper on? How is it installed? Also, are your works on paper behind glass? Do you use acrylic or oil? Lots of questions. So very much kind of painterly questions.
Okay, those are easier questions, to be honest. Well, I think to start off the process would be, I mean, traditionally, well, I would normally have used photography a lot. So I'd literally go to a space and bring a camera, take a load of pictures, edit them, and like crop them whatever way, and then make paintings from them. But that has changed because of the pandemic mostly. But I think it was going to happen anyway. So my latest stuff wouldn't be necessarily based off photographs anymore. It's more a kind of a collage, a mishmash of maybe old photos that I have, maybe found images online, spliced into like these places. So a lot of my new work is a little bit more of an unreal place. So that would be sort of the beginning stages. You know, you kind of collage them together, mostly through drawing actually, lately, where you just draw things and just keep drawing until some composition might look right, and then just paint and see how it goes. And a lot of newer work, like it's a process, so it can be quite difficult and they don't all work, so you just kind of take that chance. Then they're oil paintings, so always oil, don't use acrylic or anything else at all. Colors, I think I'm sort of starting to expand my color palette, because the ones like, say, for example, the Smegs, they sort of demand more color. They demand a lot more variation in color. These interior spaces as well, with like spotlights and things, and there's like, you know, these retail spaces are generally a lot more colorful than maybe more like outdoor spaces and things, because it's like heightened as well. So like I would have normally worked with, I think it was about 9 colors in my palette. And now I think every time I put out paints lately, I think I'm putting like 16. So Yeah, it's changed. It's going to continue to change as well. Like every time I order paints from Evans, I'm adding in new ones just to try them because it's very exciting anyway when you get new colors. Like for me anyway. So yeah, that's and then paintings on paper when they're shown usually in a gallery. Like lately, I kind of have a kind of it's like a frame that they just sit into, but not all of them now would have that. But it can be a frame that they just sit into, and it's got like a tiny white border on it. Just it's a no glass in the gallery setting, just because I think for the work that's so small, you need to be able to see all the texture and surface. So glass can sometimes distort that slightly or cause reflection. But when it would be framed for a home, it would have to be behind glass, unfortunately. But that's just purely to protect because it is on paper at the end of the day. And then a lot of the time when it's displayed in galleries, they're displayed literally just on their own on paper, with like the frame, no frame most of the time. And they're sort of, now in fairness, I was lucky that the first time I worked, hung a show, I was working with a technician and he showed me how to hang in a particular way, not to damage any paper and to keep everything perfect and in really good condition. And you do have to be careful that in some places, like maybe if there was a colder or damp environment, they do sometimes warp a little. So that's something that I'm figuring out. And that's why I'm starting to put them in frames sitting in the gallery, because paper does warp, unfortunately. So yeah, so it's a process I'm still working on, but I think it's working well. But most galleries now do have they do have like the system where they can keep it at a good temperature, so it's usually not a problem.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you as well about the kind of the smallness of scale? And you touched on this a couple times during your talk, about how you might have done kind of larger versions, and you tend to kind of you prefer the smaller ones. And what do you think this kind of scale brings to the paintings, and what kind of effect are you trying to kind of communicate to the viewer through working with kind of a smaller sizing of paintings?
I think in the beginning it was thinking of holiday snaps and photography and things like that, where they're just a moment. I think it was about moments more so. I think that was in the beginning, and I think lately, because the work is so in your face, large scale, like like the Smegs is bigger. That's a 50 by 40 centimeters. So that's bigger and it works fine. It's quite nice. And I am actually kind of excited, I think, to try something like that even bigger, just to see what it's like, just to see if it can be really kind of horrifying. Because I mean, I was saying there that I did the Starbucks one big and it was just awful. It just doesn't, it was too much. But I think, yeah, I think for mostly it's to do with sort of capturing small, quick moments. And there is a quickness as well. And when you're doing small scale, especially work on paper, what I find is I'm not too precious at all. And when you become precious with your painting, sometimes when you're making them, that's when you lose it. That's when the thing is kind of lost. That there's something in the moment of painting where you know that you're not really fully in. It's like, I suppose it's flow, where you're not fully involved, you're just doing. And with the small scale, you can just keep doing. It's not, you don't have to think about things too much. Whereas when you go bigger, you do have to. And I think there's something gets lost there. Maybe it's something to do with brush strokes, something to do with like the quickness. I don't know exactly, but I'm still definitely going to continue keep doing the large ones as well, just to get there eventually, but it's taking a bit of time.
But there's a nice correlation there, I think, that you mentioned between kind of the snapshot, these handheld photographs or things you maybe looked at even on your phone, and then this kind of transference into kind of a smaller scale painting on paper or a small canvas. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit maybe about this relationship of photography to your paintings, certainly in those earlier stages. What characteristics did you look for in determining what places you document, what criteria you use, what you're looking for, and decisions that make certain images, and presumably not others, transferable to becoming a painting?
Yeah, I think usually, well, when you're experiencing this place, like for example, if I go back to Kennedy Park, for example, I think it was never really about a prettiness. It was never really about somewhere that was nice. It was always about something that I could take, that I could imagine something else happening there, that I could imagine that, this might not be Kennedy Park, but this might be, I don't know, some kind of film set, and that there's a narrative about to play out, or maybe it's the end and a narrative has already played out, and there's something in that kind of the possibilities of a place, possibilities for people actually. And it's usually like the interesting thing is that I don't paint people usually, and I think that this is how I, in a way, bring the body in, because there is a story that may happen or may be about to happen in the spaces I choose. And I think that's how I manage that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like that, the way you talked about the cinematic qualities of those paintings there as well. And also a term that you used on a couple occasions was the uncanny, which of course has all these kind of Freudian connotations of kind of the unhomely or the kind of domestic space that has been made strange or kind of been made unsettling. And just one other thing I wanted to ask about is, and it just kind of caught my ear when you said it, was you mentioned some of your paintings belonging together. I think you were talking about this in reference to the works that came into the UCC collection here. And can you talk a little bit about this and how you group these kind of bodies of work? I mean, do you kind of go into a process of kind of making a series, a suite of related works, or is it something more intuitive, or do you base these series around periods of personal experience, say, for instance, the Australia series of paintings?
No, it's actually, they're usually painted at the same time together. That tends to be, like, for example, like, the ones for the home paintings that are in the collection, they were painted one after another over the course of the week, and they were just put up on the wall together then, and they because of that, how they were made together, they started to talk to each other in a way that, in my head anyway, and like I make it, okay, so I've done that room now, so I'm going to go into the next room. Does that make sense? So I was walking through the space bit by bit as the paintings were happening. So that's sometimes, and then I feel like they belong together in a way then, because, well, they're the same place, and in my mind, and it wouldn't be necessarily that everyone else would see it, in my mind they are a walkthrough, and they are of different times of day, and they kind of, they live that way, if that makes sense. Like they're supposed to be together, I guess. It's very cheesy.
No, but it's kind of nice, to kind of think of, instead of just like, oh, this is a series or this is a project, but that they have there's some kind of correlation that kind of goes beyond that. And I mean, certainly also, even when you're talking about your work, I mean, you're kind of talking about kind of biography at the same time, which I thought was kind of intriguing to me, that those are works that have a particular place in time, not just in their content, but also within your kind of longer term practice.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a way I'll continue. Like at the moment now, the work, because it's not based off any particular place, but it's maybe, for example, I've done a few there lately where it's car parks, and they kind of have been done at the same, like as in one after another. So I feel like they go together, but they wouldn't necessarily have to be displayed together, but they were made together, and at the moment they're in the studio together, So it's usually just about when they're made and how they end up put on the wall in the studio, which is, for me, the first place that they're ever shown is on the studio wall. And it's me, I have to live with them now, and I have to experience them myself for a little while before I'm ready to let them go.
Well, we'll look forward to showing your work here for the home exhibition as well. And of course, you also had that work from the UCC Art Collection shown in Glucksman recently as well. So one of many exhibitions to look forward to for 2020 by you, Ciara.
Yeah, thanks very much. This has been amazing. Thank you so much.